Hey everyone, in the last video we saw introduction of Redux, its usage and its flow, how it flows and how it works. And in this video we are going to create a store and we'll actually do a hands-on how to implement the Redux into a React application. So let's play around it and see. So first we are going to install all the required dependencies for Redux in our React.js application. So for that we will get into our application. So first we have to install Redux package, which is the core Redux package that will help us to use Redux methods and functions. The other package which we will require is React Redux, which will help us to use the Redux method and functions via React hook. So these are the dependencies which we will require for the Redux use in our React.js application. Now, as packages are installed, we will create a project with some hierarchy of components. Basically, we will create 3 components in the root component as header, body and footer. And inside body component, we will add 2 components as component 1 and 2. And then in the component 2, we will add 2 more components, component 3 and 4. So that will be our 3 levels of hierarchy of components. So in this situation, if we want to pass data from root component to the component 4, which is the bottommost component, passing through props will be a hectic and redundant, and as we know, this is the basic rule of coding, that we should not repeat the code or we should not use a redundant code. So it's a perfect place to use Redux. I have already created the project structure as discussed. So here in the components folder, you can see I have already created header, footer, body and component 1, 2, 3, 4. We will look how it looks like on the browser. So my project is already running. We will go to browser. On browser, you can see we have this header and a body, and inside our body we have component 1 and 2, and inside component 2 we have this component 3 and 4 and a footer component. So now what we are going to do is to create a store for this application, and then we are going to pass our data inside components in this folder, and we will try to do that using the Redux store. So for that you have to follow 4 steps. So first you have to create the database, and then you have to share that database with all the components. Then you are going to get the data from the database and display in one of the leaf components. So here leaf components are component 3 or component 4. So we will choose component 4, and in this component 4 we are going to display a username, and from header component we are going to update that username and the changes will be reflected in the component. Yeah, sounds like a plan. So we can get started on the code. First step is to create Redux store. For that we are going to create a folder named as utils, and inside that we are going to create different files for each of the tasks. First we will create store.js, into which we are going to create our store. So first we have to import our create store method to create the store from the Redux package. Then we are going to create a store, that is const store is equals to create store, and in the parameter we are going to pass our reducer. So for that we have to first create our reducer. So save this file here and open a new file. So I'm gonna name it as user reducer. Now here I'm gonna create a reducer. So reducer, I have given a deep explanation of reducer in my last video. So in this file we are going to create a reducer. So we are going to define a const user reducer, and that will be a function which will take state as a param. So here state is an object which contains all the current value of all the fields which we have declared inside this store. So by default we have initiated it as an empty object. The second parameter will be action. So basically this function will be a switch statement into which we will check which action has been triggered, and according to that we are going to do the task. So here we are going to check action dot type, and inside that we are going to define cases for different actions. The first case which we are going to create is update name, and inside that we are going to return an object into which name will be the name which we have passed to this object, action dot name. And yes, never forget to define our default case. So for default we are going to return just return. So our reducer is being created. Now we are going to export it. Export default reducer. Now we will import this reducer in the store. Import user reducer from user reducer. Now we are going to pass this user reducer to this create store. So now we have created our store. So this store we are going to pass on the topmost component of our application so that it can be used by the lower components. So here app.js components is our root component, which is the topmost component. To pass store or provide store to the application, we have to use provider. So we have to import provider from Redux, and that provider we will be used to wrap around our application. So here we have to pass the store. We will close this provider, and to pass this store we have to import our store which we have created. So we will import store from utils /store. So and then we are going to pass this store to the provider. Now all the component which is under this app component will be able to use this store. So let's get inside one of the component and try to access the data from this store. So we will go to the component 4, which is the bottommost or the leaf component of this application. So here we are going to use this store data. So for that we are going to use a useSelector hook of a React package. So for that we are going to import useSelector from React Redux, and this useSelector hook we are going to use inside our component. So we are going to create a local variable name as data, into which we are going to store all the data of this store and try to display one of the data. So here we are going to use useSelector, and into parameter we are going to pass a function, and function will be state, which will also return all the updated state. So now in the data variable we have the updated value of all the data or the field in the store. So by default data will be an undefined value. So here we are going to check if data exists, then we are going to display name in h4 tag. To get the data on this useSelector, we have to put some data in the store. So for that we are going to put or update a store from some other component. So let's say we are going to do that from the header component. So from this header component we are going to trigger some action which will trigger the reducer to put some data into the name field. So let's create that, and for that we are going to use a useDispatch hook of React Redux. So we are going to import useDispatch from React Redux. Now we're gonna save it and use this dispatch to put some data on our store. So inside the component we are going to define const dispatch equals to useDispatch hook, and we have to define the action as well. So this action will be dispatched to the reducer, which will update the data in the store. So action basically is an object into which you have to pass type of the action you have to trigger and the value of the field which you want to update. So here we will going to update a name. So the type should be exactly as what we have defined in the reducer. So here we have update name. So that the type will become an update name, and whatever name you want to give, you can give it. So here I'm going to give it my name, Kamra. Save it. Now we will dispatch the changes to the reducer. So to do that, we will add a button, and on the click of that button, we will dispatch the change. So on click, we will add this function which will directly trigger the dispatch function, and we will pass our action into the dispatch. And this button we will label as update and save it. So exactly what is going to happen over here, that we are going to dispatch these changes to the reducer, and that reducer will update the field in the store. So now our final step is also completed. You can have a look on browser how it looks like. Oops, looks like we have missed something. Let's see our store file. Yeah, we haven't exported this. So let's export it. Export. Now we will get back to browser. Here we can see that we have this button in the header, and here in the component 4 we are going to display the name. So once I click on this update button, I can see that a Kamran name has been updated in the component 4. Now to summarize whole of the flow, I'm gonna repeat what I have done. So first we have created a store, and also we have created the reducer. Then we have passed this store to the app.js, and then in the component 4 we have received the state of the store and displayed it on the UI. And in the header I have added a button from where I'm dispatching an action, and in that action I'm saying that I have to update the name as Kamra. So we can add this dispatch method in some other component and we can see the difference. So let's choose component 1, and it's also I'm going to add this update button. Now I'm going to update a new name from here. New name. Now we will go to browser and see the changes. So here you can see that we have 2 buttons now. So from here I can update that as Kamran, and again once I click this button in the component 1, it will update it as a new name. I hope now you get the idea how to create a store in Redux and how to use that in a React application. If you like the content of the video, please like the video, and if you are new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button as well. Happy coding everyone. See you in next video.